In this tutorial, we are going to discuss the process related to quality function deployment. First, let's explain what is quality function deployment, or usually known as QFD. Quality function deployment is a process to help design products that customers desire. This is done through an intricate process where we learn what the true voice of the customer is and translate that voice of the customer into product characteristics. We build what's called the house of quality. Here is a picture of what a typical house of quality would look like. Now, in this house of quality, we will have many different elements, but this is essentially the core components. There's what's called the customer room, the engineering room, the integrator room, the competitor room, the testing room, and then finally the attic. Looking at the customer room in more detail, this is where the true voice of the customer is done. So what is really crucial here is that we're trying to listen to what the customer needs and not what the designer is capable of. For example, oftentimes a company might have expertise in one particular area, and they will try to emphasize that expertise in their product, even though the customer may not desire that expertise. If we were building a minivan, a customer might say something like, "I would like to be able to shut the doors very easily." The organization building it, if they were experts in hydraulics or some type of lift system, might say, "Customers really desire automatic door closers." This is a very crucial point that we must listen to the customer first before we start to really think about product design characteristics. The second room is called the engineering room. The engineering room is what's called the how room in this puzzle. The how room is, how can we measure the attributes described by the customers, and how can we think about how to evaluate those attributes by the customers. So we're trying to describe the product with measurable design characteristics. So again, back to our example of a minivan door closing effectively, we might want to try to measure that with something like pounds of pressure, foot-pounds per square inch, something of that nature. Some measurements are quite easy. Others are very difficult to quantify. It could be something related to aesthetics, which can be a very tricky thing to quantify into a meaningful fashion for a design team. The third room is what's known as the integrator room. If you notice, the integrator room is the intersection between the customer room and the engineering room. This is what's known as the primary matrix. The matrix of the what's in the rows, so the what's are the customer characteristics, and the how's in the column, the engineering characteristics. So we're going to try to then see how well are they related. So we determine how to measure the how's by looking at simple or complex measurements. Here's the key. When looking at the integration room, we're trying to determine not only how they're related, but how strong they're related. So if you think about this in a little more detail, we're looking for, in statistics terms, something like correlation. So are the items strongly correlated? Are they moderately correlated? Or are they weakly correlated? We're not concerned at this point in time the direction in which they're correlated, just whether or not it is or isn't correlated and how strongly it is correlated. So for example, we have a measurement called pounds per square inch, and we have a customer want of able to close the door with ease. Well, we would say that they are certainly related. How strong they're related, I don't know. That would be up to a team to decide. And as we look at a cross-functional team that would decide, hey, I think that this is a very, very positively strong related element. So let's go ahead and darken a circle with a very strong positive element. The next room in our puzzle is something called the competitor room. And the competitor room is evaluation of your competitors. If you really think the first three rooms, customer requirements, are translated into language for the design team, the customer requirements in the design team is really critical for us. However, the last room here, the competitor room, is very important because it tells us how well we do on these requirements relative to all of our competitors. And if we're really strong in an area and weak in another area, but the customers are requiring that, and we learn that our competition is very strong in those areas, we are able to then address those things directly here in the competitor room. We use things called plan satisfaction rating and improvement factors to really get an assessment of how well we're doing in this competitor room. The bottom of our matrix is called the testing room. Right? The testing room is technical priorities. And when we look at the technical priorities, we're trying to see a comparison between the competitors and ourselves and how well we're able to actually meet customer specifications here. Right? And it's a good sort of check and balance of how well the how room is working. Finally, there is what's called the attic. And the attic is our directional relationship between the hows and the whats. So we're trying to look for the direction of improvement. We might find in some instances that there are items that are, negatively correlated. So we might be looking at something like foot-pounds of pressure again, and amount of pressure opening up a door on a hill. Well, if it's a downhill, it might be very easy to open up the door, so it takes very little foot-pounds of pressure to open up the door very quickly.